The Film Basement is filmed in sunny West Hartford, Connecticut, in front of a live studio audience.
Welcome to a very heroic episode of the Filmmaker's Basement. I'm Brandon.
I'm Andrew.
And we're going to be talking about some of the movies we saw this week, in addition to playing a little game show later on. And in reference to the name that I gave this week, I went out and saw the Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie. So, a charming thief and a band of unlikely adventurers embark on an epic quest to retrieve a long-lost relic, but their charming adventure goes dangerously awry when they run afoul of the wrong people. That description was kind of vague, so I actually wrote something a little extra for that. So, after busting out of prison, our bard Edgin Darvis, played by Chris Pine, and barbarian Holga Kilgore, Michelle Rodriguez, go on the hunt to find Forge Fitzwilliam, Hugh Grant, an old party member who was keeping Edgin's daughter safe while he was in jail. They find out that not only has he become king of a city, as well, he has also turned Edgin's daughter against him, in addition to working with the evil person who put them in prison in the first place, the wizard Sophina Davis. Now Edgin and Holga need to put the party together to save his daughter, heist a stolen artifact, and uncover what evil plans that those two have. So, when I went into this movie, I was kind of basing my information of it off of an older trailer I had seen where that looked very rough. In addition to that, some of the TikTok advertising I got was not really hitting me well. So I did not have very high expectations for this movie. I will say I was incredibly and pleasantly surprised to find out it is very good. Like, genuinely a very good movie. Not even a good D&D movie, just a good, like, fantasy adventure movie, period. And I think to start off, while it's not necessary to the point of the movie, it serves as a great introduction into D&D as a concept. We get like a heavy focus on like the role-playing aspect of it and how these archetypes play out in the game, as opposed to focusing on like the lore of the world, which is very expansive for what I understand. So something like that probably wouldn't have worked as well here. Instead, we're getting kind of the skinny of it while also exploring this new story that they're telling for us. And I think like an example of that is how like the different classes kind of work in the world. So in D&D proper, there's like various classes that dictate what your character can do, like warrior, barbarian, etc. Certain classes have like spellcasting abilities, which I think if they were to try to give all those characters spellcasting abilities, it would make things very confusing because you wouldn't be able to tell who's doing what and why they're doing that, etc., etc. So the movie chooses a very interesting angle to take this, where everyone can't do magic, but they have like their abilities are represented. For instance, there's a druid character who usually in the game, druids have some kind of magic that comes with them. Instead, she gets to focus on the other druid ability, which is turning into different animals. So it becomes a very useful tool for the party as they go through the world. Like she can transform into a fly to go spy on people. She can turn into essentially like a werewolf, but themed as an owl. So she can fight people well. It's like stuff like that. The other instance comes in with our main character, Chris Pine, the bard. Bards have magic in D&D, but in this case, that's not really his focus. His focus is more to be like the kind of the comic relief and also like inspiring character at the same time, which is a very interesting angle to take it, but I think it works very well. And it also keeps everyone distinct. So that way the fights aren't just focused on like random garbage flying around on screen. It's like you can actually tell what everyone is doing and they have their own specific thing. So you know it's them when they're doing it, which I liked very well. I thought it served as a great way to, again, like I said, make everyone very distinct and give you the ability to keep focus on everyone while fights are happening. Additionally, it's very cliche, but it's a kind of cliche movie. But I think it's cliche in a fun way. It doesn't work against the movie. It helps it. And an easy example of this is everyone has their archetype. Like in the context of the game, like for instance, Michelle Rodriguez is playing the dumb barbarian. It's like the big brute who's not very smart. So she can hit really strong, but she's not really the planner type. You got Hugh Grant playing kind of a scummy, like he's playing the rogue essentially, the guy who took over the city and stole the daughter. Plays very good like scummy politician while also being like this really good endgame villain. And then there's also later on we get introduced to this paladin played by Justice Smith, who serves as like the stock paladin archetype, like the no nonsense, no jokes, like I serve the light, I'm the best person around here, like I'm gonna go around and save the day kind of guy. So everyone, again, they all have their cliches that play into. The movie plays into additional cliches. I think they work very well in making the movie feel very fun to watch. Additionally, all the characters were fantastic, and I'll give that to their performances easily. My favorite was actually Hugh Grant as Forge Fitzwilliam, because he plays a very good, smooth-talking slimeball villain, where you know he's gonna like use a lot of fancy words to try to like lull you into thinking that he's on your side, and then stab you in the back when you're not looking. And it's every time he's on screen, it's a treat because it's very enjoyable to watch. Additionally, I loved it. Like I loved his motivations and how he like gets to interact with the world and how that kind of builds him up into the villain that he gets to be, which is very fun. I'll also give props to Chris Pine as Ed Darvis, essentially our main character. He was excellent at playing like the quick thinking, greedy, but like has a heart of gold bard, who also has the classic, like tragic anime backstory. Like, my wife has died, I don't have my daughter anymore. Like, I don't even know what's the point of going on, et cetera, et cetera. And all those kind of lead into his motivations of wanting to get his daughter back. Earlier in the film, we find out like the reason why he was in prison because he was stealing an artifact to try to resurrect his wife, which I think is a great motive and carries him throughout the rest of the film. So major props to everyone, because everyone was fantastic. Even people I didn't expect, like Michelle Rodriguez, because I know her from Fast and Furious, and I don't usually associate those movies with like really good acting and actors. It's, you're there for the action. But she does a really good job in this movie, and I'll give her props for that. There's just a bunch of aspects of the movie that worked really well. I loved the comedy that they were able to, how the comedy kind of flowed in the movie. There's not a lot of like stopping to let jokes like land. It's more like a lot of quick quips, which I think again works well in the context of an adventuring party. I love the mixing of costumes, practical effects, and CG, because I was very worried, because a lot of times films say, it's just a CG fest. Like everything is computer generated. There's not a lot of actual practical effects. But I like that they mix in like a lot of costumes. So for instance, towards the beginning, there is a bird person. It is a person with a bird head and big old wings, and it's a practical effect. And you know what? It actually looks really good. They could have just gone the easy way out of it, just making the character entirely CG, but it works in the context of the movie. It makes him feel like he's really a part of the world, that he's, the costume's actually there, that they can act with. So it's separating it out, like the practical effects and stuff like that, making the magic just be entirely CG, which looks a bit hokey and kind of corny from time to time, but it doesn't really take away from the experience of the movie. And in a lot of instances, it really works to enhance it. So overall, the only thing I didn't really like was there were definitely some issues with, the best way of putting it would be pacing. Like, it's very much the film for the first half of the movie is like we're going to trek across a bunch of locations to find stuff and find our party members. And then the last half of the movie is just we're going to stay in this one location, focus on doing this one task. And the first half, I think, suffers a little too much from that. In particular, there's one kind of like short stint that they're on where they're trying to find this mysterious artifact, and that's when their paladin character shows up. He's on screen for like 10 minutes, but the way it's cut makes me feel like they had to cut some scenes out of it in order to shorten the duration of the movie. Because towards the end of it, they're like, he does this thing where he's like, oh, I'm leaving off to do my own thing. And the party's like, you're leaving, but you've been with us so long. And I'm in the theater thinking like, what? You've been here for like 10 seconds, man. Like, I don't even know who you are. So, and in addition to that, I wish it had stayed in certain locations longer. Like I wanted to see more of this world, and I felt like we kind of missed out on that with all the trekking around towards the beginning. So I don't know if that was an issue with the movie needed to be longer. I don't know if it's maybe we needed to take some scenes out and focus on the locations that they were in. But it felt very aware in a way I have not seen as much recently. So that is a definite issue, and I hope we get like maybe a director's cut or something that's a bit longer. You get a bit more of that material that was cut out. That would help it. Otherwise, really fantastic movie overall. Like if I did not know the title of this movie going into this, I would never have assumed it was a D&D movie. It just reads as a really good like action adventure fantasy movie. So if even if that's not up your alley, like it to a degree, it also has some Marvel notes to it, though I don't think they're too strong. It's just a good people pleaser. Like if anything I've said so far sounds good, just go see it. It's really worth it. And if you're just a big fan of like action, adventure, fantasy, any of that, give it a shot. It is really good.
So I had a question because I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, but I know people who do.
Yeah.
And the people that I know that do play Dungeons and Dragons did not want to go see this movie because they were expecting it to flop. And just based off of critic reaction and ratings and everything, I saw that it was doing really well. And I still don't know if they've gone and see it. But do you play?
A little bit. I keep up with a lot of like actual play podcasts, which are just people playing D&D, in a podcast form. I've played a couple times.
Okay. See,
it fits. It makes
I'll
sense.
watch people play was it D20 and Critical Role and stuff like that. Like I don't mind watching people play. I just don't really have time nor like the mental capacity, intellect to like come up with my own story. So I just don't play. But I was wondering about it because I guess there was a previous Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out in the 90s or 2000s that was awful. And they were all like, everyone was expecting it to be just like that. Or like a sequel to that. And I guess it hasn't been, which has been nice. So
no, completely unrelated. There's like lore stuff in the movie. I picked up on some things I know because I don't follow D&D lore at all. Like I'll keep up with the podcasts that do their own thing, or if I am playing, it's with a friend who's homebrewed his own thing.
Well, I know because I've seen from what I've seen from the trailers, there is a lot of like the enemies in that you would see in like a D&D campaign. Like you've seen them. I've seen the Mimic, I've seen owlbears, I've seen the panther looking thing that I can't remember the name of, and I only know the name of all this stuff because I worked at GameStop for like so long that it just kind of got ingrained in my head. But so like I've seen that and I didn't like, and I know that it's like there's no true story to Dungeons and Dragons because
not entirely true. They have Wizards of the Coast has their own like mainline universe stuff.
Okay.
So they do have some stuff, but like you said, it's mostly what the players make of it. Like you make your own story for the most part.
All right.
But it's like the lore stuff is like there if you know it. Like again, I spotted some stuff that I knew from my very basic understanding of the D&D universe with things like city names, for instance. Like I know Neverwinter is a big location. They mentioned Baldur's Gate at one point. I know that's a location. But like besides that, and even like it's not really essential. It's a bunch of stuff, but it's not really essential to understanding the movie. It's just like there if you get it kind of thing. Like they don't really make a big deal of the monsters even. It's like it's just another monster in universe, It's like chest comes alive, that's just reality. That's just what we live with every day. Like there's an evil chest that wants to kill me. It's treated very matter-of-factly, and I like how they approach that. There's not like we're going to explain for 10 minutes what this monster is. It's just there's a cat that can make an illusion of itself. Just run. This is a horrifying monster. So I like they did a really good job approaching that stuff.
Well, I went and saw a movie called Shazam: Fury of the Gods, and IMDb. I don't know if anyone's listening who works at IMDb, but y'all really need to up your synopsis game because this synopsis is one sentence. And it states, the film continues the story of teenage Billy Batson, who, upon reciting the magic word Shazam, is transformed into his adult superhero alter ego Shazam. That's it.
That is the worst synopsis.
That's the worst synopsis I've ever heard on IMDb. Let me see if I can find
bad.
One.
That is genuinely bad. Like that's just lazy. That's not even just bad. It's just lazy writing.
No, I know it's terrible. And
like if you're gonna make it a sentence, at least have it related to what the movie's actually about, and not just the last movie. Like seriously, we get he can turn into a guy. Like come on,
we've seen the movie.
Yeah, even if you haven't seen the movie, I think you can understand what like the context of it is. Like he claps and he says Shazam and becomes a big man. Like that's the thing. That's what he does.
Right.
It's not that hard.
Okay, I've got one. Thank God for Google. Bestowed with the power of the gods, Billy Batson and his fellow foster kids are still learning how to juggle teenage life with their adult superhero alter egos. When a vengeful trio of ancient gods arrives on Earth in search of the magic stolen from them long ago, Shazam and his allies get thrust into a battle for their superpowers, their lives, and the fate of the world. It's much better.
There you go.
I'm confused on. So I went into this movie thinking it was just gonna like suck, because most DC movies kind of suck. And this one wasn't terrible. Like it had a good, it had a nice flow. It had good character development. It had good shock value surprises to it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't the first Shazam also pretty well received, all things considering?
See, I don't remember the first Shazam being all that good. And I went to the movie theater as I was arriving saying, damn, I should have watched the first Shazam movie before I came out to see this one. Because from what I remember about the first Shazam movie is it was okay at the beginning, but then by the end you get these like 7 like demon monsters that are like horrible CGI, that Mark Stone's character like resurrects, and I don't know, it was like I remember leaving being like, wow, that was a waste of time. And then going to this one, I was like, well, hopefully this isn't a waste of time, and it wasn't. I kind of enjoyed myself mainly because I like Greek mythology stuff, and this took from a lot of Greek mythology. For some reason I like going to see movies that critics hate but the audiences don't mind.
You're a people pleaser. That's just what you're
apparently
about.
Yeah, apparently I'm easy to please. So like I was saying with this movie, it's like the plot development was good. It was a good motion to it. It basically has, Billy is trying to keep his family together, and this family are these like 5 other foster kids that he lives with that all now have superpowers. And so that was basically like the whole plot of the movie. And then you get thrown into these 3 like witch type characters who are daughters of Atlas, the Greek Titan. Who their homeworld, which is in a different universe. So they kind of teased like the DC extended like multiverse for the movies, which I thought was interesting. Because like Shazam in his like little home lair has all these doors that lead to a different world, and I think they're like different dimensions, or different like worlds and stuff, in the universe, so, or multiverse. So these women have to like find a staff, and then they have to find a seed to plant a tree. And I don't know, it was like, it seems dumb, but like in action it was pretty good. Like there was a lot of stuff that I usually go into superhero movies, especially ones that I think that I'm not gonna like, and I'm like, I can tell what's gonna happen already. And most of this movie I was like, oh, okay, I didn't realize this was happening, until like the moment like leading up to it. Like usually when a character gets like introduced, I'll be like, all right, that's suspicious. And I didn't feel that way in this movie, because there's one character who kind of does like a double cross, and I didn't expect it at first until it got to like a little bit later, and like right before it happened, I was like, uh-oh, like this isn't good. So I don't know. But this is the problem with DC, is I don't know where they go from here, because the whole news with DC is they're basically starting fresh. they just fired or let go Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, and The Rock. So all the characters that they've just kind of built up over the last 5 years, they're gone. And it was confusing in this movie because there is a cameo from one of those characters. And at first, because in the first Shazam, there's a cameo from Superman, but you don't see Superman's head. So like they kind of played it off like, because that was like when Henry Cavill was going through his like renegotiation, so they didn't show his head. So they did the same thing for this movie. So I thought it was just a throwaway cameo, like they did for the original. And then they showed up at the end of the movie, and I was like, weren't you fired? Like, so I'm wondering how DC is gonna go about this, and I have a theory because this movie was obviously made and finished before any of that happened, where James Gunn took over DC and he, revealed his plans. But there's another movie that was basically finished that's coming out this year that's also DC, and it's The Flash. They also left this one wide open for a sequel, Shazam. At the end, during one of the end credits, they teased him joining the Justice Society, which was the society that was in the Black Adam movie, of superheroes. So I don't know like where they're gonna go from there, but The Flash comes out this year, and the whole premise of this Flash movie is the Flashpoint paradox, where Barry goes back in time and saves his mother, and then does not become Flash again. And that changes history, and it changes the timeline. And even when he goes back and rights his wrong, and this isn't a spoiler for the movie, I haven't seen it, I just know of the storyline. When he goes back and ends up changing history again back to the way it's supposed to be, where his mom passes and his dad gets thrown in jail, the world is still different from when he originally went back the first time. So I'm kind of thinking that because we're getting Flashpoint later in the year, that the DC timeline is going to change drastically, and it's going to stay changed because we're not going to have Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, all those actors I listed off earlier playing their original roles. So I don't know who is staying in DC and who is not staying in DC, because I even looked up if there's going to be a third sequel to Shazam, and Zachary Levi, who plays the titular superhero character, he was like, I don't know. And if they invite me back to do another one, I'll be pleased to do that. But right now, I do not know if I'm going to get another movie, even though they left it wide open for another sequel. So I'm just kind of confused on where DC, like, I know where Marvel's headed. Every time I go into a Marvel movie, I'm like, okay, I know where this is going. When I go see DC movies, I have no idea where they're going for the future. And it's a little infuriating because I want to know what they lead up to. So I guess we'll see when Flash comes out, and then when James Gunn's movies start coming out later, 2024, 25.
Doesn't Blue Beetle also come out this year?
Oh yeah, Blue Beetle comes out this year too. So again, another DC superhero where I'm just like, are they going to keep him after this movie? Is it just going to be a one-off movie? I have no idea. I totally forgot that trailer came out earlier this week. So yeah, Blue Beetle also. So again, no idea. DC is just kind of like all over the place right now, and I just want to know what's happening. I have my Flash shirt on too. My reverse Flash. But yeah.
It is unfortunate that all those actors, not going to get any more movies with them.
I know.
I will say, I am really happy that Henry Cavill is no longer playing Superman, because now he gets to focus on his other interests like Warhammer. I'm very excited to see the Warhammer content that comes out of his projects.
I'm also interested to see if he's actually going to be in the Marvel universe, because there's like all the fan casting wants him to play Doctor Doom, which would be awesome.
Interesting. I mean, he's a free agent now. He can do literally whatever he wants. So I'm very excited to see where he goes. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It seems like it was, what was it? Shazam was like just all right, or
it was all right. It was it was a movie. It was neither good. It was neither bad. So I mean, it was right there. So
yeah, and you know what? Honestly, actually, sometimes that's even worse than a movie just being straight up good or bad. You know?
Yeah,
it's like wow, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just forgettable.
I mean, for the average superhero fan, I think that they would think it would be just average. Like I said, I liked it a little bit more just because of the Greek mythology aspect. Like near the end of the movie, a bunch of monsters started showing up, and they were all from Greek mythology, like the Cyclops, you had the Minotaur, the Chimera, Harpies. And like as they were appearing, I'd be like, "Oh, I know what that is. Oh, I know what that is." So I thought that was kind of cool, because they kind of merged the two. Because obviously Shazam is part of that Greek mythology kind of stuff. So,
you know, it is what it is. Okay, moving on. We're gonna get to something we haven't done in a little bit, and that is a quick round of Pilot Wings. So it has been a little bit, but Pilot Wings is a game show, at least in this case, where I'm going to be giving Andrew three reviews from, what is it? I guess the general audience would be a good way of putting it, from Rotten Tomatoes. And it's Andrew's job to guess what movie this is based off those reviews. Now, this is a movie you've seen. I double checked to make sure this was a movie.
Okay.
This was actually the one I did the week prior, but we did the Oscar stuff instead of actually doing it.
So this is the this is all one movie that I have seen. Okay.
This is a single movie. So I've got 3 reviews for you right now. If you need an additional guidance, I have kept a 4th review hidden for the moment.
All right.
But I'm going to read these off, and let's see if Andrew can figure out which movie this is. So, review number 1. The movie was confusing, so much happening all at once, I nearly fell asleep. That said, it was still entertaining. That was said by Mark A. Thank you, Mark.
Interesting.
Number 2, very cheesy at many points in the movie, making it highly unenjoyable. Didn't like the point where the viewers need to have seen the show in order to fully comprehend the backstory, and many plot points made no sense and hurt the viewing experience. That was said by John S. Thank you, John. And number 3, this was a fantastic movie to watch. I give it 4 stars just because there was so much death. I took my 9-year-old. It kind of freaked him out. But as kids are so desensitized, he really liked it. I love the delicious way the movie did the cinematography. Make sure to go see it. You won't be disappointed. Enjoy. Fabian. Thank you, Fabian. So, Andrew, based off those 3 reviews for a movie you've seen, what movie do you think it is?
There's so much death, and they took their 9-year-old.
Not to mention that he loved the delicious way the movie did the cinematography.
Okay. Is it a movie I've reviewed?
Yes.
Okay.
Directly. I know you've reviewed this one before.
Okay. Viewers need to have seen the show in order to fully comprehend the backstory. That makes me think it makes me think that there was a show that was in line with this, which makes me think to Marvel, because I would say the same thing. And the only Marvel movie that I know that has so much death and has pretty good cinematography is a movie that was directed by Sam Raimi, who was at MegaCon this past weekend, who I did not get to go meet, but my friends did. And that was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Okay, you gonna stick with Doctor Strange? There's nothing else you think it could be?
Well, no.
Okay. You sir are correct. It is in fact Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
All right, cool.
I figured these were too vague and that you needed to have at least seen like the show part.
That one,
that was
that
a good
line,
one.
that
Because
line.
otherwise, I don't think you would have been able to figure that out without it. So I had to give you something where it's like you need to at least like give you a little something, you know?
Yeah, that line specifically was like, well, there's only like one like movies that have shows with them, unless it's a Star Wars movie, and no Star Wars movie has come out in a while.
Yeah.
So yeah. What was the last one?
Oh, so the last review was Marvel has become a spectacle devoid of core stories. Too many elements in too short a time to explore characters made this movie a soulless adventure and became pretty boring quickly. Every other movie these days has dazzling visual effects. It has lost its appeal from the Avengers days. Marvel should invest heavily in stories instead. And that was said by our friend Patrick H.
Oh, I don't know if I would have gotten it from that if I didn't get it from the other ones.
I figured
it would have at least gotten me to Marvel.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I figured. It's like, if I'm going to give you something, I'm going to give you the Marvel thing. That should hopefully shorten it out. But that has been Pilot Wings this week. So what I'm going to do next week. I don't know if I want to keep doing this one or if I want to try something else out, but
sure,
we'll see what I'm feeling that time.
So I just have to put out right now that I just name dropped it really quick before we get into upcoming releases. Star Wars Celebration is this weekend. They have already announced 3 new Star Wars films, and I believe like 15 Star Wars films over the next like time. So the next 3, one of them is going to be around the Mandoverse, which is the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and all that stuff. Bad Batch. One of them takes place 15 years after Rise of Skywalker that Daisy Ridley is going to star in. And then there's another one that I don't remember exactly what it's about. But Star Wars is back, and we're going to get new movies soon.
We'll see if that's a good thing. Oh yeah. So let's move on. Let's move on to some more upcoming releases. There are actually some good stuff in April that I'm pretty excited about.
I am seeing a movie on Sunday that we're both going to be reviewing next week.
Because I've already seen it.
I know there's a movie coming out next week that you are 100% going to review.
Are we talking about Renfield?
Yes.
I am so ready for Renfield. That is the Nicolas Cage vampire movie, and I don't need to say anymore. It just sounds like it's going to be a good time. Yeah, that's definitely one of the movies I'm very excited about.
Other than that, next week, I don't really see much in the ways that for me. Maybe this Sweetwater game or Sweetwater movie.
What is that?
It's about a Hall of Famer, Nate Clifton. He's the first African American to sign an NBA contract.
Okay, interesting.
So, it's basically like the Jackie Robinson of the NBA.
Okay, fair enough. I know also the week afterwards we get Beau is Afraid, and I have been seeing trailers for this movie since like November, and I'm very excited. I'm also ready to be let down because it looks like the kind of movie that could let me down. So we will see. But this is the following the sudden death of his mother.
I'm gonna say
a mild-mannered but anxiety-ridden man confronts his darkest fears as he embarks on an epic Kafkaesque odyssey back home. This is like dude's basically a schizophrenic in his scene shit. Just kind of losing his mind trying to get home. It looks wild.
I'm gonna say that A24, that company has put out some bangers.
Yeah, lately. It's J.J. Abrams company. So it doesn't surprise me they're good about it.
I didn't know that.
I think it's his. I'm fairly certain.
Interesting. Yeah, because
hearing about that wrong.
They did The Whale and Everything Everywhere all at once.
Yep. They do a lot. They do a lot of good stuff because there's oh man, they did Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. They've got a lot of bangers in their back catalog.
Daniel Katz owns it.
Daniel Katz. Okay, different guy entirely. Regardless, really, really good production studio. What was I gonna say? I'll also say, if I remember correctly, Ari Aster.
They did Moonlight too.
Yeah, they do a lot. Ari Aster is the director on this. I think he's the same guy who did Midsommar. He's done also a bunch of other interesting stuff too. So, and Hereditary. So, probably a good sign this will be a very weird but good movie. So, I'm hopeful.
I'm interested to see that week The Covenant. The Covenant follows U.S. Army Sergeant John Kinley and Afghan interpreter Ahmed. After an ambush, Ahmed goes to Herculean lengths to save Kinley's life.
When
Kinley learns that Ahmed and his family were not given safe passage to America as promised, he must repay his debt by returning to the war zone to retrieve them before the Taliban hunts them down first. It's a Guy Ritchie movie.
Yeah, I'm
very into Guy Ritchie movies. And it's got Jake Gyllenhaal. He plays the main U.S. Army guy.
Yeah.
So I've seen trailers for it. I'm interested to see that one.
Looks all right. I'm just happy there are actually some more movies coming out that I actually kind of care to see. That is definitely a bit refreshing.
It's been a slow early to the season, and now it's finally kicking up.
And I hope it stays that way until at least give me a couple months of films coming out before you go back to a dry spell.
It's looking like it. Hopefully within the next month and a half, it looks like we've got some big ones coming out. So
we'll see. But I think that'll bring us to an end for this week. Andrew, do you have anything you want to plug before we go?
Nope.
I don't have anything I'm looking to plug either, so I think we'll close it out there. Thank you for listening to Filmmakers Basement. I'm Brandon.
I'm Andrew.
And we will see y'all next time. Thank you for listening.